Since ancient times, humans have drawn strength from living together. Villages expanded into towns, and towns swelled into great cities shielded by towering stone walls. While much of humanity settled into increasingly organized societies, certain peoples continued roaming freely across vast open landscapes. The distant grasslands of Mongolia were home to many such wandering tribes, groups who survived through animal herding and hunting, moving constantly in search of fresh grazing land. Because their livestock required new pastures regularly, the Mongols never constructed permanent homes. Instead, they lived in portable shelters called yurts, circular wooden-framed structures draped in thick felt or wool, which could be dismantled, loaded onto wagons, and transported across the plains alongside the herd. These tribes were governed by chiefs known as khans, who handled military decisions and political affairs. Over generations, the Mongols became extraordinary horsemen, domesticating small but remarkably resilient horses that became the very foundation of their way of life and their fighting power. A Khan's wealth was often measured not in gold, but in how many horses he owned. Life on the Mongolian plains was relentless and unforgiving. Winters arrived with devastating cold, roving bandits and raiders threatened the camps without warning, and rival tribes competed viciously for grazing territory. The neighboring Chinese kingdoms dismissed the Mongols as little more than barbaric nuisances, never treating them as a serious military threat. For generations, Chinese rulers even funneled payments to tribal leaders to keep them at odds with one another, deliberately ensuring that Mongolia remained divided and unable to pose any real challenge. Then, in 1206, everything changed. A warrior named Temujin rose through sheer determination and battlefield conquest to claim the title of Genghis Khan, meaning Great Khan. He launched an ambitious campaign to bring every Mongol tribe under a single banner, putting to the sword those who refused to submit. With a unified and battle-hardened army behind him, he turned his ambitions toward China. At that time, China was divided among three competing powers: the Tangut dynasty in the north, the Jin dynasty in the northeast, and the Song dynasty dominating the south. The Tanguts, whose lands bordered Mongolia and whose cities were fewer and less fortified, became the first target. The Mongols lacked siege equipment, but they possessed another potent weapon: patience. They encircled cities and cut off all supply lines, while their own flocks kept the army fed. Sending troops to confront the Mongols in open terrain proved disastrous, as centuries of hunting and riding had molded them into formidable horsemen and deadly archers. The Mongol bow was a feat of engineering. Reinforced with animal horn and sinew, it launched arrows with tremendous force and precision across remarkable distances. Its compact shape allowed skilled riders to fire at full gallop, steering their horses with only their knees while keeping both hands free for combat. One of their most effective battlefield tactics was the feigned retreat. Warriors would appear to flee, luring enemy troops into an exhausting chase, then turn with sudden ferocity and unleash a withering counterattack. These methods allowed smaller Mongol forces to routinely defeat far larger and better equipped armies. When cities chose resistance over surrender, Genghis Khan showed no mercy. Entire populations were put to death, not purely out of savagery, but as a calculated form of psychological warfare. If the fate of one defiant city became widely known, the next would almost certainly capitulate without a fight. Historians estimate that tens of millions of lives were lost across China and beyond during the Mongol campaigns. Yet the Mongols were also deeply practical. Skilled craftsmen, engineers, physicians, and administrators were spared and absorbed into the war machine. With knowledge borrowed from captured Chinese engineers, the Mongols constructed siege weapons capable of breaching even the tallest fortifications. By 1215, the Tangut and Jin territories had fallen. Even Beijing, defended by walls 12 meters high, eventually crumbled under prolonged siege. Success multiplied success. As the empire's wealth and reach expanded, more warriors swilled to join. Cities that agreed to pay regular tribute in gold, fine silk, and quality timber were permitted to continue operating. The Mongols eagerly absorbed the technologies and expertise of the peoples they conquered, outfitting their elite cavalry in iron-plated armor and mastering advanced metalworking and manufacturing. In 1218, a diplomatic catastrophe shifted the Mongols' direction entirely. Envoys dispatched by Genghis Khan to the Muslim Khwarezmian Empire in Persia were accused of espionage and executed. Such an insult demanded blood. Leading roughly 200,000 warriors westward, Genghis Khan besieged the great Persian cities of Samarkand and Bukhara. Despite their courage and military training, the Khwarezmian forces were overwhelmed. By 1220, the empire had been erased from the map, and millions had perished. The world paid close attention. No kingdom would dismiss the Mongols again. The expanding empire fostered remarkable cultural diversity within its ranks. Mongols, Chinese, and Arabs lived alongside one another, exchanging knowledge, customs, and technologies. The Mongols proved extraordinarily tolerant of different faiths, permitting all forms of worship within their territories. Their own spiritual tradition, Tengrism, was built around devotion to a supreme sky deity and wove together shamanic practices and ancestor veneration, eventually absorbing influences from Tibetan Buddhism as well. With Persia came control over vast stretches of the Silk Road, the ancient web of trade routes connecting Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. The Mongols enforced strict order along these corridors, relentlessly pursuing thieves and guaranteeing safe passage for traders. This period became known as the Pax Mongolica, or Mongol Peace, an era of relative stability that allowed commerce and cultural exchange to flourish on a continental scale. Genghis Khan died in 1227. His third son, Ögedei, assumed command and pressed the expansion forward. Under his reign, northern China was fully subdued, Korea was brought under Mongol authority, and armies advanced deep into Europe. The legendary General Subutai, one of history's most gifted military minds, who had served faithfully under both Genghis Khan and Ögedei, led a winter invasion of Russia, pushing through temperatures that would have broken most armies. His forces then swept through Poland, Hungary, and Romania. Even European knights, hardened veterans of the Crusades, found no answer to the precision and speed of Mongol archers. The rest of the continent began desperately preparing for what seemed like an inevitable reckoning. But history intervened. In 1241, Ögedei Khan died unexpectedly, and Mongol tradition required all leaders to assemble and select a successor. The European campaign stopped in its tracks. The continent had been spared, not by military strength, but by coincidence. The years that followed were shaped by bitter internal rivalry. Competing nobles wrestled for the title of Great Khan, and armed clashes between Mongol factions began tearing the empire apart from within. Eventually, Kublai, a grandson of Genghis Khan, defeated his rivals and claimed supreme power. He reorganized the empire into 4 major khanates and established the Yuan dynasty in China in 1271, becoming the first foreign emperor to rule all of China. Unlike his ancestors, Kublai had been raised with an appreciation for Chinese culture and governance. He ruled with sophistication, though many traditionalist Mongols saw this as a sign of weakness. His reign was troubled by constant uprisings and political intrigue. Seeking to reassert his reputation as a conqueror, he launched 2 naval campaigns against Japan, both ending catastrophically. The first fleet was obliterated by a sudden typhoon. The second was turned back by Japanese naval resistance and samurai warriors defending their shores with fierce determination. The Japanese named that storm Kamikaze, divine wind, believing only supernatural intervention could have protected their islands from conquest. Kublai's standing never fully recovered from those defeats. Rebellion spread, and emerging kingdoms began reclaiming territories that had once bowed to Mongol authority. The empire formally dissolved in 1368, and most of its people returned to the open plains of their homeland. Even today, nomadic traditions endure across the Mongolian steppe. The legacy of the Mongols, however, reaches far beyond any border, living on in the trade routes they secured, the cultures they bridged, and the sheer audacity of what they accomplished. From hardy horsemen on windswept grasslands to rulers of the largest contiguous land empire the world has ever known, the Mongols left a mark on history that no passage of time has managed to erase.